After pressure from President-elect Trump, the GOP and House Speaker scrapped the short-term spending bill with a deadline quickly approaching. Joining us now to discuss is Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold. Good morning to you, sir. Good to see you as always.
Morning, Jan.
You said yourself the funding bill was a huge disappointment for taxpayers. Tell us some of the things that were in the bill and also what Speaker Johnson should have done instead.
Yeah, this bill was a mess. I mean, I'm glad that it's done. Majority Leader Scalise says this bill is absolutely dead now. That's good news. It was 1,500 pages that included all sorts of extraneous provisions, including a congressional pay raise, things that were completely unrelated to the funding process, like the American Tourism Act. I'm not even quite sure what it does, but I know it doesn't belong in this piece of legislation. So what we need to do now is start over, and it should be a pretty simple process. All we should do is fund the government into the spring of next year. We'll have a new president at that time. We'll have a new Congress. Let the new Congress and the new president deal with these funding challenges that are very, very important, but let's not try to cram those into this last-minute holiday bill that does a real disservice to taxpayers.
More than 1,500 pages. I was looking over some of the provisions that were in here, a lot of the port projects from lawmakers and just other things that had nothing to do with funding the government, but instead bills that were dealing with criminal justice, healthcare. There was something about satellite licenses. I was like, what does this have to do with the federal government in the short term here and funding it is what I was trying to figure out with some of these bills. But then, you know, we've seen this before in Washington where they can't come to this resolution, and we've had this like partial shutdown, the shutdown of non-essential government services. Explain what's going to happen next if, let's say, lawmakers can't come to a deal by tomorrow. What's going to happen?
Yeah, we would experience a government shutdown. The key word here is one you just mentioned, Jen, and that is essential. And essential is a kind of nebulous word. And the president has a tremendous amount of authority in determining what is essential, so which government employees will continue to work, and what is non-essential, and which government employees will not continue to work. So this could have a huge impact on Americans, particularly as many people, probably a lot of people are packing as we speak in preparation for holiday travel.
Right.
Will this, for instance, disrupt the TSA process? Will there be TSA employees that are furloughed and unable to process people through security at airports?
Well, they're considered essential from what I read. They're considered essential. The difference is they might have to do retro pay, and so it might make it easier for someone to say, oh, let me call in sick, you know, because they're not getting paid at that time. But I did read that would be one of the ones that was essential. Whether or not workers show up is a totally different, ballgame, obviously. Also getting a lot of attention is the amount of spending President Biden is doing in the fourth quarter. This is because of the use it or lose it dynamic, as we know. What can be done, though, to stop this with our taxpayer dollars?
Yeah, it's a huge problem because government employees know if they don't spend their entire budget by the end of the calendar year, that money disappears, and it could mean that future budgets are trimmed because people will see that they're not spending all their resources. So what we should do is pass legislation. Joni Ernst, a senator from Iowa, has a great bill that looks at the 10 months prior to the end of the year, averages out how much each agency spends in that window, and requires agencies to stick to that average rather than going on this last-minute spending spree that we're seeing certainly under the Biden administration, but we've seen under previous administrations
The National Taxpayers Union has some advice for the DOJ Commission to try to get rid of government waste. So tell us about the annual no-brainers list of top 10 bipartisan bills for taxpayers that you guys think we need to have.
Yeah, these are just common sense, bipartisan, good government reforms that we absolutely should pursue, and we hope DOJ will prioritize. Things like addressing improper payments. By some measures, we spend $500 billion each year on improper payments. These are, in many cases, fraudulent payments going to people that should not be receiving government benefits. We need to crack down on that. And here's one that I really like. No budget, no pay. Congress is supposed to, required by law, to pass a budget each and every year. They usually don't do so. This law would say if you don't pass a budget, you have to stay in Washington. Taxpayers will not reimburse your travel costs until you get it done.
All right. Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold, thank you for joining us this morning. Have a great weekend, sir.
Thanks, Jan. You too.
Thank you.